Congratulations. Now I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Venkatesh Karthikeyan sir. Sir, he is the Community and Family Medicine PG AIMS Patna and State General Secretary of IMAJDN Tamil Nadu. Sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So very good evening, everyone. Myself, Dr. Venkatesh Karthikeyan, Community and Family Medicine Postgraduate from AIMS Patna. I'm glad to see that doctors have joined from the lengths and breadths of the country. In the past 3 months, IMAJDN has organized webinar series on various topics like career prospects in hospital administration, financial planning for doctors, COVID vaccines, mucormycosis, COVID updates in ophthalmology, and about COVID management in collaboration with Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and AIMS Delhi. We got very good feedback from the junior doctors that our webinars are very helpful in patient management and as well as to gain in-depth knowledge about COVID and related topics. With the whole country anticipating about the third wave, we are organizing this webinar about public health response to COVID. IMAJDN has organized this webinar under the guidance of Dr. Abul Hassan sir, National Chairman of IMA Junior Doctors Network. Sir is a senior pediatric surgeon from Erode. Sir has dedicated himself for the welfare of junior doctors and has done a lot of things for our welfare, like he has intervened to conduct stay vacancy of 700 plus vacant seats in super specialty, intervened to revise the cutoff eligibility for NEET PG and NEET super specialty aspirants. He has facilitated job opportunities for many doctors, not only in Tamil Nadu, but even till Delhi. He intervened against postponement of NEET PG and against the extension of tenure of PG courses beyond 3 years. He acts continuously addressing the issues of young doctors like job opportunities, PG education, workplace challenges, attack on residents, leadership development, and entrepreneurship. Regarding COVID, Sir had run a free COVID hospital and has spent more than 1.5 crores. And yesterday in Independence Day, Sir got the award from the district collector also. Also, his team, including me, we have worked in free teleconsultation service and have benefited more than 5,000 people across the country. So with this very short intro, I would like to request Dr. Abul Hassan sir to welcome our Honorable Speaker, Dr. Siddharth Shekhar Mishra sir, and our junior doctors who have joined us today.
Thank you, Dr. Venkatesh. Good evening, everyone. I thank Venkatesh for his kind words about me. I welcome the speaker, Dr. Siddharth, and all my colleagues like Karan Juneja, who is the Secretary of the National Council of IMAJDN, who is also present here. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome these delegates of this webinar. We have been doing lots of webinars continuously, as Venkatesh was saying. We have covered almost topics of various spheres of this pandemic. And today we are going to talk about the mitigation we have done in this COVID pandemic. India is one of the countries in the world which has done very well in this particular response to COVID, public health response to COVID. Today we will have a kind of insight into this particular topic. So I wish every one of you to have a very nice time, very nice session with the Dr. Siddharth. I once again welcome the speaker and also all the delegates. Over to you, Venkatesh.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for joining despite having a case on the table. And all the best for the state president election, the Tamil Nadu state president election. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Yes. So now I take a great privilege to introduce the Honorable Speaker, Dr. Siddharth Shekhar Mishra, sir. Sir holds MBBS and MD in Community Medicine from AIMS, New Delhi, headed DNB PSM and Senior Residency from PGI Chandigarh. He has worked with Google Docs for National Health Portal and have been involved actively in teaching and training more than 2.5 lakh doctors for postgraduate entrance exams in the past 6 years. Sir has also worked with the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare for disaster management cell, handling the COVID effectively. He is currently working as assistant professor at Indian Institute of Health Management Research. With this very short intro, I would like to request Dr. Siddharth sir to take over the session.
Thank you, Dr. Venkatesh. Now, I would just, before I start this session formally, I would just like to give one introduction, which probably might be interesting to others. See, this is one of the rare moments when we see actually a public health speaker actually talking about COVID, because till now, probably the COVID discussions were always led by clinicians. So I would only give a flavor of public health because I was actually got an opportunity to handle the public health aspect of this pandemic management from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare at the national level. So I would be sharing few of my experiences. Plus, I would also be telling you the indicators which the World Health Organization and the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare have actually developed to actually gauge this pandemic, and those indicators are here to stay. Because when we talked about that whether the third wave would come or not, the answer to it is yes or no, we don't know. But how do we actually know the third wave has come, and what is the preparedness we need to do? That is what we would be discussing today. The session is totally open. You all are free to ask any question you like. Okay, I am more than happy to answer that. This is totally not a formal session where I would like to be a speaker who is just giving a one-way lecture. I would always prefer it to be a two-way interaction. Okay, so probably Dr. Venkatesh, is it okay that I can say that we can share the presentation with the participants, because I don't have an issue in sharing it with anyone.
Sure, that will be very helpful.
Okay, so I would request all of you to actually look into this presentation from the perspective about what would be the indicators in the near future if we are going to predict, prevent, and actually build upon the knowledge what we got from the first and the second wave. So that is what my objective of my session is. Okay, so with the permission of the entire house, I am now going to share the screen. Okay, it is probably a presentation which would take us roughly 30 to 35 minutes. After that, the session would be open for whatever queries you guys want to have. This is purely from a public health perspective. I am not a clinician, neither would I want to be a clinician, because at the end of the day, as a public health specialist, I'm more than happy doing my role as preventing and managing the pandemic. Okay, that's all from my side as an intro. So Dr. Venkatesh, can we start with the permission of the entire group and the chair?
Sure, sir. We can proceed, sir.
Okay. So the first and foremost thing what I would like to share over here is India witnessed the second peak, which was 4.2 times higher than the first peak for cases. Now, when we talk about the cases as a whole, if we see, the mortality was almost 5 times above than what was seen in the first wave. Now, this was actually a big deal for our country. Because in terms of the absolute population, if you see, India is second. Officially, unofficially, if you say, we are probably first, because our census is not that good to say that we have not crossed China. So this was a huge estimate. Now, why is this estimate important? Because when in the next 5 years, we would look into different indicators, whether it be the maternal mortality, whether it be any disease-related mortalities, whether we talk about any indicators of the sustainable development goals, we are going to miss the targets. And that is why these numbers have become very important for us to read. And that is the reason the response should have been graded. The response should have been cautious regarding reopening of activities, which should have been coupled with enforcement of strict COVID rules. Now, why I'm saying should? Because as of now, we can see that it is lacking somewhere in the ground. At different places, we are having different kind of response. Apart from this, appropriate behavior and effective containment strategy was critical. But we know we do not have the behavior of wearing masks, or probably hand hygiene is very poor in our country. We are solely reliant on the vaccines. That is what is the ground level report as of now. Now, the core capacities, if you can see, which was important for managing the public health response was, one was surveillance. COVID, we did active surveillance, we did passive surveillance, we did sentinel surveillance. So all 3 forms of surveillance we have implemented in COVID. Testing. See, when the first wave came, you would not believe India did not have a single testing kit for COVID. And the National Reference Laboratory was NIV Pune, which was single laboratory in India, which had capacity to actually test for this disease. From that, we developed RAT, we developed Kavach ELISA, we had our own RT-PCR systems, and now we have MyTest, which we can do it even at the home. So we have come that long way in testing. Information management system. See, we all know about the HMIS, which is available, but we know to what extent the HMIS was. And that is the reason we came up with the IHIP portal along with IDSP. Infrastructure preparedness. India did not manufacture PPE. The PPE kits earlier used to be imported. India went on from this to becoming the largest exporter of PPE globally. Talk about oxygen. We saw the oxygen shortage. Currently, India is very well placed in terms of oxygen. Logistics, human resource, the different kinds of medicines, vaccines, we were nowhere in the list, but India was able to harness that. Capacity building and human resource, again related to logistics. And the most important probably which played a role was targeted and focused communication. We could see Ministry of Health and Family Welfare coming up with different posters, even many times memes, we generally used to laugh off, using different Bollywood stars or some film posters to actually promote the COVID appropriate behavior. Now, the three major pillars which was there for public health for managing COVID was, we wanted to reduce infection, increase the detection, and reduce the deaths. So to reduce infections, we had only one method at that time, that was containment and surveillance. To increase detection, we developed testing strategies. To reduction of deaths, we developed different kinds of hospital, CCC, COVID Care Center, dedicated COVID hospitals. Yes, these were developed at different levels to basically reduce the deaths. And then in due course, we came up with vaccines. But even now, if you see, the penetrance of vaccine is still very low because of the huge population which our country has. When the government planned, there were 6 important pillars, which we will see one by one, which I have already discussed in the first slide. In this pillar, vaccination was a new addition because it came up almost a year after the disease came up. Now let us look into the containment zone. Now the containment zone, if you can see in this image, this was a classic image which was used to explain the containment zone, where in the cluster of cases, we developed a containment zone followed by a perimeter, followed by a buffer zone. Now it was very, very important to map these cases and contacts. And for this, we developed digital mapping tools. If you would have been in a particular area, I was in a containment zone almost 4 times. So initially, the containment zones were very erratically defined, but later, even there was a facility which was added to the Google Maps, which could tell you that, okay, this particular area is a containment zone. Apart from this, a well-demarcated perimeter control was very important, where there was a restriction of movement in and out, which was maintained by the local authorities, the police. You would have seen the police people marking a containment zone in the first wave, which was grossly missing in the second wave. Inside the containment zone, we could see there was restriction of movement. Essential services were only allowed. The community volunteers were enrolled into providing the management. And there was effective communication regarding the containment areas. 28 days was the period when we actually stopped the movement. Now, what is the concept of 28 days? Public health people know, clinician friends. See, the reason we take 28 days is because period of containment is defined as twice into incubation period. So we were lucky that COVID has an incubation period of 14 days. So 14 into 2 is 28 days. This is the main reason for 28 days we had a containment and surveillance in that particular area. Now imagine some other disease with a higher incubation period, we would have been shut down for even a longer period of time. So I hope now you guys understand from where this 28-day concept had come. Now, when we talk about the benchmarks, now this is new. This is not available in the normal media as of now. The percentage of daily new cases coming from outside the active containment zone, the benchmark was kept at less than 25%. Now, if it would have been more than 25%, then we increased the perimeter of the containment zone. That is, we increased the area. That is what we did. Percentage of containment zones which were active after 14 days of detection of last case, it should have been 0%. Now, why 0? Because this means you have effectively contained the disease in that area. Average number of households per containment zone should have been more than 50. Now, this is very interesting. Those of you might have seen later, even a single house was made a containment zone. This is against the rules of containment. See, the government and WHO very clearly states that in a particular area, depending upon the population density, it should have more than 50 households. But there was an exception to this in the Northeast, in the hilly, and in the tribal areas. This is for a normal plain population, more than 50 households were defined. Average area was put into 1 kilometer of radius, so that because as per the population density, we expect in a kilometer's area there will be 50 households. People's movement was totally restricted except for essential services. Now, when we talk about surveillance and testing, it was said that the percentage of households in the containment zone screen should be ideally 100%. Now, you can understand it is impossible. So then they again revisited and said more than 50% people in the area should be tested. Number of teams for door-to-door case search per 100 household was kept at 1 or preferably more than 1, and each team should have 2 people. 100% people who were more than 60 years of age, that is the people who were high risk, were supposed to actually get tested. And here a new concept was introduced called as reverse quarantine. Those of you might have heard about the concept which was followed in the slums of Dharavi. Basically, Dharavi has become a popular model because people who were in the high risk age group, the elderlies, were removed from the slums and were kept under a separate facility to just prevent infection. This gave rise to a new concept called as reverse quarantine. Normally, we know about quarantine, we know about isolation. A new concept came up in COVID, that was reverse quarantine. Contact tracing, very, very important concept. Theoretically, it looks excellent, but in real life, it is next to impossible. The government said that the percentage of cases from contact tracing should be more than 80%. That is, it was estimated that for a single case, there will be average 30 contacts. And from that, 80%, that is 24, should be identified within 72 hours. Those of you who might have gone for contact tracing know it, this was never possible on the field. Percentage of contacts traced with RT-PCR, 100% people should have been tested with RT-PCR. Now remember, RT-PCR, not the rapid antigen. This is what WHO stressed. Percentage of contacts placed under quarantine, 100% should have been placed under quarantine. So if you see, and if you are a person who is going to manage the third wave, you have to look into these particular indicators if you want to contain the infection. Now, apart from this, basically the door-to-door cases survey was done. Whom to visit? All the patients who were more than 60, the comorbid patients, and the influenza-like illness, ILI, or severe acute respiratory infection, that is SARI patient. ILI, SARI surveillance was to be done. Every household ideally should have been visited daily. It is not possible. And that's the reason WHO said at least once every 3 days minimum should have been done. To check for COVID symptoms, to check for temperature, to check for SpO2, and testing of the people in that particular area was to be made. And for this, we have the Arogya Setu app and the Itihas portal. Yes. Now, Arogya Setu, all of us have in our mobile, we know it. Itihas was another portal which was developed by the ministry for this particular purpose. The team, as I told you, had 2 members with almost 100 households, and they were given a thermal gun everywhere you must have seen, which is used in the malls or in your workplace offices, and also a pulse oximeter. Apart from this, the team was given a triple layer mask, gloves, PPE, hand sanitizers, which was given to the team, because generally the team comprised of an ASHA worker, an Anganwadi worker, or in the rural setup, the ANM was there. So basically the team framed of these grassroots workers. Now, when we talk about contact tracing, I've already told you the cutoffs. Now, in this, the question was about quarantine. There were 2 types of quarantine which were available. One was home, one was facility. Now, the facility quarantine was basically for high-risk population, elderly, pregnant, immunocompromised. For others, we went for a low risk, for which government had provided a separate guidelines for quarantine, because they ensured that there should be a separate room, a separate toilet in the house. So it was not possible in the slum areas, as I mentioned the Dharavi model. Yes, and every person who was in quarantine, they were asked to check their SpO2 twice a day, so that if the SpO2 falls below 95%, they should immediately call the helpline. Testing, the cutoffs or the benchmarks for testing. Now, why is this important? See, generally we talk, today the testing in Delhi is less. Today the testing has been falsely elevated because they want to show something. Now, how should a doctor interpret it? The confirmation percentage should be less than 5%. So we have to test to such a degree that the confirmation percentage should be less than 5%. You would not imagine in the second wave, in the city of Pune, we could record a confirmation percentage as high as 50%, which means if I am tested and Karthikeyan is tested, out of two of us, one of us would have been positive if we would have been in Pune. This showed that the testing is very, very insufficient. And for that, WHO said that the test per million per day is more than 140. Test per million population per day. Now, why is this important? Because see, the absolute number is not going to tell you anything. You have to take a denominator. See, in medical science or in public health, we always stress denominators are important. It is very, very important. So WHO said that take the denominator as total population, and if it is more than 140, great. Ratio of test growth rate and case growth rate should be more than 1. And this was difficult to achieve. Percentage of labs with less than 90% capacity utilization should be 0%. This was basically kept as a benchmark so that the labs function at full capacity. Percentage of symptomatic antigen negative retested through RT-PCR was 100%. Now, what does it mean? See, suppose I am a person who has been a contact. A rat test was done. The rat came out to be negative, but I'm having symptoms of COVID, anosmia, fever. I'm having symptoms of COVID. I was supposed to get an RT-PCR done. This was very important because generally people used to do a rat negative. They used to think we don't have COVID, go out into the community and become super spreader. So the government said 100% of people who are rat negative but with symptoms should have done an RT-PCR. Percentage of antigen as proportion to total test should have been less than 30%. This was very unique because those of you who have followed COVID closely, states of Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, their share of rat was only 10%. Whereas states of UP and states of Bihar, their share of rat was roughly 80%, which indicates that this was a wrong strategy to some extent, which was followed because rat is just a screening test and it would not yield you correct results always. So RT-PCR is the gold standard. So that is why the government said this ratio to be followed. Turnaround time from sample collection and result was kept at less than 24 hours, that is less than 1 day. See, we have heard many reports and many of you might have seen that you have given a COVID report today and your result comes up after 3 days, 7 days. See, it is a normal phenomenon. If I don't get my result, I will always think I'm normal and I will roam out in the society. And the moment I roam out, I would be basically spreading the disease. So those of you who are looking into the third wave, you have to see that these testing indicators are met depending upon your specialty. If you are a microbiologist, you should be ensuring these. If you're a public health specialist, you should be looking into these. If you're a clinician and you have prescribed a test, a rat, you should see if the rat is negative and your patient is symptomatic, you do ask the patient for RT-PCR. So overall, this slide answers every specialty and their need. Now, how was this testing to be assumed or to be met? Existing capacity, you increase the utilization, creating new capacity. The government set up in every medical college a BSL-3 lab, and also in district hospital, the government set up this. So as of now, in India, every medical college has theoretically got a BSL-3 lab. At least the government medical colleges do have a BSL-3 lab, which is good because those of you who are looking into newer diseases or newer tests, you can easily now get it done at your government college rather than sending it to apex institutions. Now, ICMR guidelines, whom to test, the contacts, the SARI and ILI patients, the healthcare workers, and the vulnerable populations. So they basically talked about this particular group of people who should be tested without a fail. So how did the chain follow? Sample collection, transported to lab, test completion, result entry on the portal. So to estimate the delay in time, which is very, very important, and those who are interested in hospitals, you must be knowing there is something called as a time motion study. This was conducted by the government. This was conducted by the government to see any delay which has happened, to expedite the process and to keep the time less than 24 hours. Let's talk about fatality. See, there were many reports which said absolute number of deaths in India are so high compared to the global population. We are still at 10th in number of deaths. The per million population deaths were low. Which indicator to believe? Which indicator to believe? Let us see. For fatality mitigation, the government set the weekly district CFR at less than 1%. If you would see, there was a time when Delhi was reporting a fatality of roughly 6 to 7%, which is a very, very high number. Percentage of deaths within 72 hours of hospitalization should be kept as low as visible. Now, why is this important? Now, imagine I am a patient and I am going to AIIMS Patna, and I got admitted at 6:30 on 16th August, and on 17th August, 6:30, I am dead. So the doctors at AIIMS Patna have to report this as an early death. Why? Because this means I was either diagnosed late, delayed diagnosis, or I came to the hospital late, delayed transport, or delayed admission. So this would be important for verbal autopsy. Those of you who know about verbal autopsy, especially in India, for maternal mortalities and child death, we perform verbal autopsies to see what the cause of death and the social factors. In COVID, let me tell you, within 1 year, the government is planning to start verbal autopsies, because we would be able to know what was the reason of death of a particular person in COVID. Apart from the clinical progression of the disease, we want to estimate these delays. Death audit in the hospital, 100%. This was performed by the district magistrates just to see the cause of the death. This is on theory, we know it. It was not conducted to that extent, but it is important, because if we want to know and prevent the deaths in the third wave, this would be important to strengthen the health system as and when we are. CFR for comorbid should be less than 2 times of district. CFR for patients should be less than 2 times of district. The very basic reason was there is increased mortality, we know, in elderly, in diabetics, in hypertensive, in respiratory illness patient, but it should not be more than 100% of the normal death, that is 2 times. Now, why this was important? Because the government already said that those who are high risk, they should be tested, they should be kept in quarantine. So there was no higher risk for them to get the disease. But still, if there is higher mortality in this particular group, that means somewhere we are failing in preventing the mortalities. Percentage of confirmation against healthcare workers, less than state or Indian average. We know the government was not that much receptive in the second wave for the healthcare workers. Percentage confirmation among healthcare workers should be less than district average. This is always an area where probably the IMA can work in to provide more priorities with objectivized criteria. Okay. Critical beds. There was shortage of beds. Let us face it. It was a reality, not in Delhi, not in Pondicherry, not in Leh Ladakh, not in Northeast, not in Maharashtra. Every part of the country, there was shortage of beds. Basically, why was there a shortage? Because we actually could not cause the requirement. See, it is said that the threshold for upgradation, when do you add beds, is when the facilities are less than 50% full, whether it with the oxygen beds, whether it with the ICU beds, whether it with the ventilators. So if there are 100 beds, 50 se kam bhar gaya, you increase the capacity. This was missing because we never ever had these benchmarks. For home isolation, less than 40% patients were supposed to be in home isolation. There were districts which reported 90 to 95% home isolation, and they were the districts who had the highest fatality, which showed that there was a huge system deficit. Percentage of home isolated cases whose SpO2 and temperature should be monitored was 100%. This was managed because it had to be noted down on a paper. So again, These are important benchmarks to actually gauge how will we prevent if there is a third wave. Centers. We had a COVID care center, dedicated COVID healthcare center, a dedicated COVID hospitals. So the government said, depend upon in severity, a severe patient who requires a ventilator should go to a DCH, a moderate patient should go to a DCHC, whereas mild patient should go to a COVID care center. So this is important, but generally you know the health seeking behavior. If I am sick, I am in Delhi, I will go to AIIMS Delhi. If I'm in Patna, I will go to AIIMS Patna or PMCH Patna. If I am at Raipur, I will go to AIIMS Raipur. This is where the health seeking behavior for people has to be improved. Because as of now, we had overloaded the tertiary care hospitals, the DCH were all overloaded, and the patients were seen to have vacant beds at CCC and at DCHC. Now, treatment. I'm not getting into the clinical part. Okay, that is for clinicians. Basically, our job was to ensure that there should be adequate ambulance. We missed out on this. You might have heard ambulance bill from Delhi to Ambala was charged at 32,000. The distance from Delhi to Ambala is hardly 200 kilometers. We could see it doing rounds in the social media where it was charged at 32,000, for which the government put a cap on the ambulance cost. But again, this is not a one-day affair, not a knee-jerk reaction. We have to increase the number of ambulances under the NHM, the NHM 102 ambulance, CAT ambulance, whatever it be. We have to increase it. Or ensure only patients follow the MOHF guidelines. Now, I will have a very simple explanation over here. Plasma therapy, remdesivir, tocilizumab, drugs which were rampantly used in the first wave were proved to be ineffective in the second wave. Despite that, the private hospitals, the people were running after these particular medications. Now, why is this? Because of lack of standardized protocols being used. And this is what will be a game changer in the third wave. See, now even WHO states the standard therapy for COVID is oxygen therapy and steroids. There is no medication as of proved. Even ivermectin was later proved not to be effective in COVID. There are multiple conflicting evidences for the same. So those of you who are clinicians listening to this presentation, I would request you stick to the ministry's guideline. There is no harm in it. Okay, rather when you keep on adding drugs thinking there is a benefit, rather you're doing more harm. So as we say in ethics, do no harm. We should be following that. Okay, and the same rule should have been followed for discharge of the patient or for migration or any form of admission. The guidelines were well laid out by the government, but it was not followed. There was one mistake also from the side of the government, which I feel as a public health specialist. There used to be a guideline from AIIMS, a guideline from ICMR, the guideline from DGHS, the guideline from ministry. So there used to be generally 4 guidelines. Apart from this, there used to be a WHO guideline. So rather than having 5 guidelines, the ministry later said that, okay, we should have a single guideline, which the Ministry of Health has been provided and updated periodically. Treatment. Lot of shortage we know. And that is the reason a 15-day stock register was to be maintained to avoid any form of shortage at any level. Now, supply side shortage, that is not under our hand, but at least supply chain, the chain which has to be managed at my particular setup should have been maintained properly. And that we can do by just simple rules of indenting, the A, B, C analysis or the VED analysis, which any doctor or a hospital manager routinely follows in a hospital. Manpower. We hired many manpower. We hired dentists. We hired the Ayush people. We hired people who were trained with some degrees in public health. So basically, these were all knee-jerk reactions. The need was there, we hired people. Need is not there, we kicked off them. This would not work in long term. And that is why the government has now started a scheme where they are training people for COVID. Because just having additional manpower is not important. Having skilled and knowledgeable manpower is important. And that is the reason our Honorable Prime Minister actually has launched online courses for COVID. You can actually go, there is a Diksha portal. Those of you who might not be knowing, there is a Diksha portal on which the government is providing online training sessions, free training sessions for COVID. You as a doctor might not do it, but you can ask your nurse, your healthcare worker, your ANM, your ASHA worker to actually look into that. And every module is available. Every module in the regional language is available. Okay, not only in English and Hindi, we have now translated into many regional languages. Let's talk about vaccination. See, vaccine is new. Population is huge. I understand all this. But again, the most important thing was healthcare workers, 100% coverage. Frontline workers, 100% coverage. 100% coverage, basically for those who are in the eligible age groups or the eligible groups. Now, over here, there was a major issue. See, in the healthcare worker community, I'm very open, there's a lot of vaccine hesitancy. People do not want to accept that since the vaccine have been developed rapidly, they are effective. There is lots and lots of hesitancy in the healthcare workers. Trust me, vaccine is good. With the available evidence, Covishield, Covax, they are good vaccine. Please do not push them aside, stating that they are Indian versions. We don't believe. See, at the end of the day, we are Indians and we should trust them. There has been multiple studies now done by ICMR and which has been in public domain also, which have told vaccine reduces hospitalization. Almost 90 to 100%. It reduces infection 60 to 80%. Different studies have different values, but it is just like BCG. See, BCG does not prevent pulmonary TB, but it reduces miliary TB and CNS TBs. So basically, COVID vaccination is also working on this domain. So those of you who have still not taken the vaccine, please go ahead, take the vaccine. It is just 1 day of headache. You might have influenza-like illness for a day, but it's not a big deal. Take your vaccine shots. This is the message probably all of us who are attending this session have to deliver to even to the common public. But before that, we have to take the vaccine. Okay. Now, vaccination is going at a very good pace, if you ask me, as a public health specialist. When we talk about India, definitely the population is so huge, it is not possible to cover the entire country in such a short time. But if you see into the vaccination coverage compared to the developed countries, we have done really excellent. We failed actually in the previous patterns, what I told, containment, surveillance, testing, management, referral. We failed in this. Vaccination, if you ask me as a public health specialist, probably we have got a gold medal to it. Just like in the Olympics, we have got a gold medal in vaccination as of now. This is a timeline. All of you know already it is, we are ahead of the 1st May 2021, where 18 and above are already eligible. Probably by the end of the year, we will have pediatric vaccination, which will be another headache because there will be a lot of vaccine hesitancy. So those of you who are planning to do a research, go for a testing of the pediatric hesitancy, because it would be a major game changer. Because we have seen earlier any vaccine coming into the pediatric age group, generally it behaves different. So that would be a major challenge probably. Citizen communication, few simple rules: mask, social distance, hand hygiene, 3 things. Social distancing, impossible in India because the population is this high. I understand. Mask, it is nothing. Just put a mask. Hand hygiene. Now, with COVID coming up, at least I will say we are now getting hand sanitizers, hand washing available more frequently than before. Now, why am I stressing to this? So if you compare India with Japan, in Japan, the biggest benefit is the routine is of hand hygiene, of putting of mask. And that is the reason, if you see, relative to India, Japan has got a better indicator for other respiratory illness. I'm not talking about COVID, because even in COVID, there was an outbreak in Japan. But for other respiratory illness, the numbers are less. Now, there are studies going on currently regarding influenza-like illness, SARI, tuberculosis. Even India has now reported less respiratory infection in last 1 year. And my dear friends, it is not because of poor reporting. It is because of wearing of mask. The infections have actually come down. And that's a very, very good thing. So these are small things which we can do. Generally, we don't prefer to wear mask. We are overconfident, saying, okay, we have the vaccine, we don't need a mask. Come on, the mask is not only for COVID. The mask is for COVID, common cold, tuberculosis, name a disease, respiratory infection. You will be safe from a mask. Yes. So I hope we actually practice this at our own level, because the third wave can be prevented not only by vaccine, but also these particular things. Information and management system. This is interesting. See, as medicos, we are very poor with mobiles, very poor with IT. But the government for the first time channelized this with Arogya Setu, CoWIN app, RT-PCR app, the ICMR portal, the COVID-19 India portal. So government provided multiple IT platforms, rather I should say health IT platforms, to actually work for this particular thing. And currently, if you see, the CoWIN app earlier was having a lot of glitches. Now those glitches have been smoothened out, and that would be important for managing the third wave. Yes. I'm going to summarize now. So the reason I'm going to summarize is because these would be the key points which would prevent the third wave from coming. See, everyone says the third wave is inevitable. I also accept that. But the magnitude of third wave is under our control. So we have to now try to reduce the magnitude, because India cannot afford another lockdown economically, academically. Yes, we cannot afford a third lockdown. So that is the reason these would be important. The first point will be surveillance, definitely. So at central government, nodal officers have been developed, central teams have been developed, IDSP portal has been upgraded, state community-based surveillance, contact tracing, multiple agencies and rapid response teams have been formed. Localized level, house-to-house survey, targeted testing, SARI line, and predictions are important. Individual level surveillance is not a major thing for an individual. Information system, integrated portal, we have now developed the IHIP portal, which is giving integrated data. Data analysis is important, and those data have to have a meaning. Projection and infrastructure analysis, you must have read modeling papers from IIT Delhi, which predicted that in Delhi we will have 48,000 cases. Now, luckily it failed. Now, the reason why I'm saying luckily it failed, because if it would have been the case, we would have been nowhere. District-wise reviews and follow-ups are very, very important. Technology, Arogya Setu, COVID-19 portal, RT-PCR app, eSanjeevani, the teleconsultation. Just before the session, I could hear that the IMA group has actually gone ahead with a teleconsultation, and they have covered 5,000 people across the country. The government has also a similar portal of eSanjeevani, which was a free service of all the specialty. Risk communication, the ministry has developed its own portal. The Diksha platform, which is also called as the IGOT platform, integrated government online training portal. The CoWIN app, we all know about that because we have got our vaccine certificates from that. Yes, testing, we should not be lax with the testing. Even now, there are many states which are asking for a RT-PCR report. We should get it done. We should increase the testing capacity. Guidelines should be periodically updated, which the ICMR is doing. New test, new methods, because basically we are putting up a swab, but for that we have to go to a hospital. Now we have home-based, probably that has to percolate down in the rural areas. Yes, even CBNet and TrueNet have to be increased. Mobile testing labs have to be more increased in this session. Logistics, as you can see, I have put a screenshot over here where we can see the total isolation beds, number of ICU beds. So those of you who are hospital managers need to have a look into this, because this will help you actually to manage the case at your level. Yes. Same for N95 and PPE kits. I put just screenshots to it. Capacity building, it will be important. We should have more trained people for the purpose of your COVID warriors. Centers of excellence, AIIMS has been put up as center of excellence, but AIIMS Patna, AIIMS Raipur, AIIMS Bhopal, AIIMS Bhubaneswar, AIIMS Jodhpur have contributed a lot. But again, those cannot only be the game changers. Every individual who is a doctor has to do it at his or her own level as well. Now, capacity, we have developed dedicated COVID care centers, and community level also, we need to increase the procedure. Approach, widespread campaigning is still important. Still, hand hygiene and mask will be important. Recent guidelines and SOPs would be important. The guidelines for measures for tackling the community with grievance redressal, emergency support, interpersonal communication, media disclosure for fake news. It has become a huge issue, and we are now facing an infodemic. So we should be very careful that these infodemic have to be managed properly. All in all, this is a short summary where I would again take you back probably to the very first slide which I had shown, where I would like to stress that there should be 6 effective pillars which have to be addressed if we are planning to prevent the third wave. This is all from my side. I've only tried to tell you things which is not normally known, okay, by the clinicians, by the public health specialists, by the non-clinical people. So I would request all of you to open up and actually ask whatever queries you have. Okay, I would be sharing the slides definitely. There's no issue to it. Okay, fine. Okay, so thank you all of you. From my side, the session is now open. We can take questions and answers, whichever is there. Now, anonymous attendee, I could get Delhi Metro is itself inviting third wave. One can find the same in metro and mall. Social distancing completely out of question. What is the use of mask and hand hygiene in that case? Now, my dear anonymous attendee, yes, because like we say alcohol anonymous, so probably we can say COVID anonymous. Yes, see, there is a huge role of masks and hand hygiene. See, it has been proved. There are articles, if you want, we would be sharing also with you. There are articles which clearly suggest that masks and hand hygiene are more effective than social distancing in crowded places. Because see, you cannot avoid a crowded place. Now you think you are traveling in the metro, you cannot avoid it. But you have to go to the office. I don't own a car. How do you expect me to go? I have to take the metro. So in that cases, your mask and hand hygiene will be very important. Okay. So see, it is all about as and when what best suits you. Okay. So that is what I would actually prefer, that you as my dear participant to this should actually look into utilizing those other tools or weapons for controlling the COVID as well. Okay. Yeah. Any other queries? Any other queries? I'm just going to unshare, and the fancy masks are usually worn by many. Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong in it. See, let us also talk about being Instagram influencers. We see people doing a lot of Instagram influencers. So as people, probably we can have COVID masks where we can have a virus, we can have a vaccine, we can write that, okay, that TB, thutu bhaiya, don't thutu. Something we can do it. Yes, I accept. Okay. Yes. Questions, please. Questions. I'm trying to answer.
So there is one question. Do we have cold chain capacity for Moderna and Pfizer vaccine? By Dr. Bhavesh.
Once again, please.
So Dr. Bhavesh has asked, do we have the cold chain capacity for Moderna and Pfizer vaccine?
Okay. As of now, we do not have the cold chain facility except at the district level. See, at the district level, we have walk-in cold rooms. Okay. In the walk-in cold rooms, there is a section for storing OPV, which is maintained almost at -20 to -40 degrees Celsius. But there are very few districts who can do it. So Moderna and Pfizer, when they come, the major headache will be for cold chain. And that is one of the reasons why I feel government is not too keen to bring it to the system as of now. Covishield, Covax, bindas. Take Covishield or Covax, you would not have an issue. Even now, the government has actually gone ahead to see for the Covax that the Covax gets an approval from WHO. Probably by the end of September, we would be getting an approval. Okay.
So Dr. Saurav has asked, can you please tell more about reverse quarantine? Okay.
Now, Dr. Saurav, there is an article published by authors from Kerala. They have published a beautiful article on PubMed. You can just go to PubMed and say reverse quarantine. See, the basic concept of reverse quarantine is those people who are at risk, remove those people from the area where there is a risk. Yes, and take them out from that area to another area. For how many days? Till the risk is present. That is what is the simple concept of reverse quarantine. Okay? See, what do we do in quarantine? If I am the person who is coming from Africa, yellow fever vaccine I have not taken, I would not be allowed to come out of the Indira Gandhi airport of New Delhi. I will be kept there till the incubation period is over or till the vaccine certificate is eligible. Okay. In reverse quarantine, it is reverse. They would take out my father who is a diabetic or a hypertensive from my home. Okay. And they would keep him somewhere else, probably in a quarantine facility, so that he does not get infection from me. Yes. Okay. As cases come down a little, people start roaming without care for COVID. How to manage that? See, that can only be managed by communication, which is a participatory approach. In India, it does not work. So the danda, that is punish, which was there in Delhi. You would not imagine Delhi government has collected more fine from not wearing of mask in last 1 year than they could have ever collected from not wearing of a helmet. Okay, so you can understand that this is a very important approach. Okay, where you have to punish the people also if they are not following. Okay, if that is done, probably people will start having a behavior, because I will also share a very simple thing. See, whenever we fly out from Delhi, if we go to Calcutta or if we go to any place, we generally have a habit of wearing mask. And the person will, the very first question is, sir, aap Delhi se aaye ho na? Because they also know in Delhi it is strict that we have to put up a mask relatively. I'm not saying we are 100%, but still it is relatively better. Okay. Yeah. Any other doubts?
So Dr. Haripriya have asked that whether the efficacy of vaccine Covishield has increased because they have increased the gap between two doses.
Articles have been published. It is available in PubMed, which says if the gap between the two doses is even 1 year, the efficacy is more. But again, that is a gamble. Now, why that is a gamble? Because in India, we forget vaccinations. We don't even remember childhood vaccinations. So if the government increases to 1 year, we'll probably forget the second dose, because it is well proven. 2 doses give 90% efficacy. 1 dose gives 60 to 75% efficacy. Okay. So definitely increasing the gap has increased the efficacy. There's no doubt to it. And probably in the due course, when this wave will totally come down, probably we would be looking into having increased gap and even a booster, just like influenza. See, match COVID with influenza, you would understand how it actually works. Okay. Yes, Dr. Venkatesh.
Sir, a question from my side. Since you are mentioning about the booster dose, should we take the booster dose, sir, as healthcare workers? Should we take the booster dose?
Yes, Dr. Venkatesh, probably at the end of the year, like January 2021, probably 2022, the government would actually come up with this concept of booster dose, because now in WHO is also giving this recommendation that healthcare workers should take a booster dose. So probably in January 2022, we would also have a guideline for the same. Okay, but not before a year, not before 1 year.
Okay, sir. Sir, and then last few questions, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, is TPR or modeling a better predictor of when to bring down the restriction by Dr. Prakashan?
Yes.
Is TPR or modeling a better predictor of when to bring down the restriction?
Yeah. See, when you talk about infectious disease modeling, okay, those of you who are not from this background, I'll just simply explain you. See, it is based on multiple factors. Just say, I'll give you a simple example. Suppose I have to go and meet my friend who is at Rajiv Chowk, Connaught Place, which is 20 kilometers from my house. So what do I predict? That it will take me 1 hour because Google Maps shows it. So it takes into account the current traffic, the speed of the vehicle, XYZ. Modeling is that. In modeling, we basically put into account multiple factors. Now, the problem is, if these factors click, my model is a good predictor. But if my factors fail, my model fails. Okay. And that is why modeling is not the best way to actually predict. It is rather better to use the TPR, because TPR is now standardized. And that is the reason not even TPR as a single indicator. It is always better to make it as an index. 4 or 5 indicators. If you would have seen the document by the government of Maharashtra for unlocking, that, if you ask me, was the best document what India could have used for purpose of unlocking. They have given such a beautiful graded unlocking, taking into account multiple factors. And also there is a concept of reverse locking also. Like it happened in Mumbai. Mumbai was gradually unlocking. Suddenly there was a peak of cases. They again put it into locking. This was a good mechanism, actually, if you ask me, for purpose of management of this COVID. Rather than just looking into numbers, mathematics is not going to work in the true world, because in maths, 2 plus 2 is 4. When you talk about the real life scenario, 2 plus 2 can be 22 as well. So modeling is not the answer, if you ask me. That's my personal view.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So Dr. Naina has asked that what is your views about mixing of Covishield and Covaxin?
See, as of now, ICMR says it is excellent, but today only I was reading an article which says that DGCI should not approve it. There is conflicting interest, okay, because see, at the end of the day, you don't know how the vaccine will react. And to be very true, if that would have been the case, probably they would have mixed OPV and IPV as well also earlier. Okay, so let us wait for more results, but it has been encouraging in abroad. Especially those of you who are interested, you can read the trial from Vietnam. In Vietnam, they have made a cocktail of vaccines. They have taken Covishield, they have taken Moderna, they have taken Sputnik, they have taken Pfizer, they have mixed all the 4, and now they're giving a shot. So I would be a bit skeptical. I don't want to be a guinea pig to this. Okay, so I would wait for more trial result. As of now, I'll say guarded response. Don't believe in the trial so soon. Let us wait for some more evidence that both of them are effective.
Yes, sir. The last question from Mr. Prakashan, Dr. Prakashan. So he has asked, what are the ethical aspects to be considered when when the healthcare workers are given third dose, that is booster dose of vaccine, when many in the country did not even receive the first dose?
See, it is all about benefit and risk ratio. See, as healthcare workers now, we are at the greater risk. Now, why I am telling you? See, I personally made a trip to the AIIMS ICU. I was admitted there for 4 days, and the whole hospital stay was for 12 days. Now, see, the reason I was there is because we used to go for hospital evaluations from the ministry side, and we used to go to the COVID ward. We used to get exposed. Now, as compared to me, imagine there is an engineer who is sitting at home and is not going out doing work from home. If that person does not take the vaccine also, it does not make a difference to me, because I would always be exposed. And I would cite, one of my colleagues currently who is a skin beauty specialist at Bhubaneswar. She is now in ICU and probably being considered for ECMO therapy. She's a skin beauty specialist. See, the wave in Bhubaneswar, it is almost touching the flat line. But this girl, because she was pregnant, being a high-risk patient, has now landed up in a very poor situation. So if you ask me, forget the ethics. I would rather say that I have to take more benefit out of it. I will take the vaccine. So rather than being a textbook guy saying ethics, I'll say prevent, save. That's what my answer would be. Okay. See, actually, in the thing about PSM, okay, is you always need to tell yourself prevention is better than cure. See, we have heard it million times, but we don't practice it. Wearing a mask, doing hand wash, taking a vaccine, these are all preventive strategies. It is always better. Fayda ho na ho, it is always better. See, iodized namak, if we take, I don't know normal namak kaise taste karta hai, but at least because I took iodized salt, my IQ is not less by 13 points. I don't have a swelling in the neck. Think about those who actually have that. So that is where we have to think and take the vaccine. Don't worry. The vaccine is safe. Don't think. Regarding risk of side effect, risk of severe side effect, death, वो तो कहीं पे भी हो सकता है. If I go on the road, I don't know whether I'll come back alive or not. But that does not mean I'll stop going to the road and drive a car or a bike. Okay, so always look into those probabilities. The probability of having a severe side effect is very less. Take the vaccine.
Okay. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot for the wonderful session. I'm pretty sure that our junior doctors and medical students who have joined this session learned many new things, and this will add a great value, especially in the public health point of view. Thanks a lot for your time, sir, despite your busy schedule. To thank our honorable speaker and all our participants, I request my dear friend and IMA JDN National General Secretary, Dr. Karan Juneja, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Karan Juneja.
Thank you so much, Venkatesh brother. Thank you so much, Dr. Siddharth Shekhar Mishra, sir, respected Assistant Professor, IHMR at IHMR. And we are very much delighted to listen to your presentation, sir. The way you elaborated the parameters and the benchmarks, it enlightened us all. And I am very much thankful to all the delegates who have joined today. Our National Chairman, IMAJD, Dr. Abul Hassan, sir, Dr. Parul Madam, our Standing Committee Secretary, Dr. Shiva Joshi, sir, our convener who have been continuously guiding us in this path. And Venkatesh was, he kept on this excellent series of talks. We are very much delighted that sir, you enlightened us today, and we will always love to take inspiration from this today's public healthcare response to COVID. And I hope our junior doctors are more attracted towards public healthcare and they take this scheme and help to improve the healthcare system of our country. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Venkatesh.
Thank you so much, Dr. Karan. I once again thank Dr. Siddharth sir, Dr. Abul Hassan sir, Dr. Karan, and all our wonderful participants who made this webinar a successful one. Hope the knowledge gained out of this webinar will be beneficial for everyone. Hope to see you all in our next webinar. Thank you so much, everyone. We are closing now. Thank you, sir.